All the cultivators cultivated quietly. Yi Futian and the others also found a place, and then they sat down cross-legged. All the cultivators cultivated quietly. Yi Futian and the others also found a place, and then they sat down cross-legged. Sir, I have one more question, Yi Futian said, looking at the West Emperor. Palace Lord Yi, please, replied West Emperor. Before the collapse of the heavenly path, the divine tribulation was both a tribulation and a baptism. What happened after the heavenly path collapsed? Yi Futian asked. Who controls the order of the world, and what is tribulation? I had heard that cultivation was an act against heaven, thus disallowed by today's heaven. Hearing Yi Futian's words, the West Emperor looked surprised and said, after the path of the emperors was cut off, those who forged the perfect path were indeed not tolerated by the order of the world today. As for the order that operates today, it is still a mystery. Is it possible that it is the micro-heavenly path that someone realized later on? Yi Futian thought of their earlier conversation. The West Emperor glanced at him, a little shocked by Yi Futian's thinking. In the battle of the heavenly path, there were people who cultivated by defying the natural order who wanted to replace the heavenly path. Therefore, in some sense, your guess is not unreasonable. I don't know what happened between heaven and earth, or what took place in the latter days, but the truth should not be too far away, the West Emperor said. After the age of the gods began, everything was exposed. Yi Futian nodded and didn't continue to press. Thinking of any of this now was meaningless. What he should be doing instead was cultivating. Many of the people around him had gone through the second divine tribulation of the Great Path, and some were even on the verge of emperor-to-be level. Once they reached this level, with the help of the heavenly path, they would have the opportunity to resonate with the heavenly path and be baptized by the divine tribulation to embark on the path of the emperors. Such an opportunity had to be seized, of course. Above the heavenly palace, there was a group of cultivators heading towards the area below and descending from the 99 heavens. Now, the people who should be here were almost so, and no one should disturb them here, save for those super strong old monsters. Ordinary cultivators would not come up to the 99 heavens. In a quiet space, the cultivators from major camps were standing in different locations to cultivate. They were very far away from each other. On a gigantic stone pillar in the heaven court were cultivators from the dark world. At this moment, the aura upon one of them was tossing and roaring, as if compelled by a divine power. This was causing a change up above in the firmament. Many people turned their attention to that cultivator. That cultivator from the dark world was an old monster-level figure, not a cultivator from the dark court. The divine power that surged on his body seemed to indicate something more. Many cultivators in Yi Imperial Palace glanced over there, and they knew in their hearts that those more visible cultivators were not top figures there. Presently, a group of old monsters had emerged to show themselves, one after another. They may have been cultivating for countless years, but because of the collapse of the heavenly path, the path of the emperors had been cut off, so they never had a chance. Now, they finally had the opportunity to step onto the path of the emperors. It is probably another ancient emperor. Supreme Sword Lord fixed his attention there. Just like the ones from the ancient god clans in the divine prefecture, they have endured this for countless years, waiting for such an opportunity. Now that the order of heaven appeared here, they wanted this chance to return to the peak. The West Emperor cast a glance that way and said, yes, in that era, there were probably a lot of people like me, waiting to come back. When the heavenly path collapsed, why did it almost wipe out all of the great emperors? What happened? Asked the Supreme Sword Lord. There was a hint of fear in West Emperor's eyes. It seemed as if it came from the depths of his memory. It was an extremely dark time, an age of pure madness. He didn't respond, and Supreme Sword Lord didn't ask any more questions. However, he understood that once the opportunity arose, the ancient emperors of the past would return one after another to try to re-enter the imperial realm. Whether they could return to their former peak level was still something waiting to be seen. Concentrate on cultivating. You have reached the peak level of your current realm and created Taishang swordsmanship. You are only one step away from attracting the divine tribulation. Many heirs of the great emperors have already cast their own divine power, but their divine power comes from inheritance, not from their own comprehension. So, their divine powers cannot communicate with the order of heavenly path. Their realms are not necessarily deeper than yours, the West Emperor said to the Supreme Sword Lord. Even though the Supreme Sword Lord had been cultivating for a long time, in front of someone like the West Emperor, he was still a junior. Understood. Supreme Sword Lord nodded, closing his eyes and cultivating as he was before. The realm of near deity was a very crucial step in that he had forged his own independent path. Now with the order of heavenly path looming, they were just one step away from being baptized by the heavenly path. But this one step was probably not as easy as it sounded. Yi Futian had entered a state of cultivation. He closed his eyes to improve his perception, and his perception reached beyond the firmament. He was comprehending that particular heavenly path. At this moment, Yi Futian had a very curious feeling. He sensed a familiar aura, which seemed very similar to his own path. This also seemed to confirm some speculation on his part that his ancient tree of the world might have something to do with the heavenly path. There may be some connection between the micro-heavenly path that he cast and the heavenly path, which accounted for the similarities. He immersed in this perception to feel the order of the heavenly path that appeared before him. Another thought appeared in Yi Futian's mind. If the heavenly path had a consciousness, what about the heavenly path in front of him? Did it also have a consciousness? If it existed, whose consciousness was it? Yi Futian did not perceive the existence of consciousness, but the familiarity allowed him to keenly capture the power of the order in the heavenly path. He felt the order of the 5 elements, the thunder, and the destruction. Is it because my own micro-heavenly path has bred these divine powers that the resonance allowed me to perceive all this? Yi Futian wondered secretly. He thought that this must be the reason. If so, then would the reverse hold true? If he could feel other divine powers of orders from this heavenly path, would he be able to arouse the resonance of the micro-heavenly path inside his body, giving birth to a new divine power of order and making it his own? He thought this possibility was very likely. When he thought of this, Yi Futian entered a state of selfless cultivation. Now his realm was equivalent to having passed through triple divine tribulations. After being baptized by the divine tribulations, once he hit the level of perfection, he would officially become an emperor. It was just that because of the particularities of his own cultivation, he was somewhat different from everyone else. His skills could not be totally quantified. But once his micro-heavenly path entered an equivalent complete state, he had a feeling that he would be stronger than the average great emperors. In regards to cultivation, time passed by very slowly. Everyone was immersed in their own cultivation, not disturbing each other. With the passage of time, the resonance between that previous cultivator and the heavenly path was becoming stronger, and the will of the heavenly path was falling, resonating with his body. Even the sky had undergone some changes, with divine light coming down. A divine tribulation was brewing. Is he ready to step on the path of the emperors? Someone wondered as he stared at the man. If it was the divine tribulation, then he would be the next emperor to be. The cultivators from the Dark Court looked at that old monster-level existence and saw that his resonance with the heavenly path was becoming stronger. The light of order was already descending from the sky, and then a terrifying aura manifested. The cultivators from the Dark Court looked at that old monster-level existence and saw that his resonance with the heavenly path was becoming stronger. The light of order was already descending from the sky, and then a terrifying aura manifested. The tribulation is coming. Everyone's eyes sharpened as they looked up and stared at the sky above. At this moment, Yi Futian sensed that in the order of the heavenly path, there was a dark, destructive beginning to form. It echoed with the divine power to turn it into the divine tribulation. The times are indeed different. Yi Futian was feeling pretty shocked inside. The era before the collapse of the heavenly path and the era after the collapse of the heavenly path were different. The tribulations that he had experienced and the divine tribulations as experienced by other cultivators intended on killing them. But the tribulation of heavenly path was meant to be more like a baptism. No wonder all the cultivators of today's world said that the path of the emperors was cut off because it had been cut off. The creation of perfect paths required the aid of divine items, and surviving the tribulation was akin to coming under attack from the divine realm itself. Except for those who cultivated by cutting off the path, surviving the divine tribulation meant nothing because no path of the emperors was available to them. But this firmament made everything possible. This was part of the heavenly path. Whose will constructed this piece of heaven? Yi Futian secretly exclaimed in his heart. He opened his eyes and saw the man soar into the sky until he was beyond it. The divine tribulation descended, and it was equally terrifying. The 99 heavens in the heavenly imperial palace were penetrated by the light of divine tribulation, which completely shrouded this corner of the sky. In that era, what will happen if one fails to survive the tribulation? Yi Futian asked the West Emperor. The tribulation of this era could obliterate those who failed. The tribulation was here for the express purpose of destruction. Failure to survive the tribulation means to never cross that hurdle. One will always stay at that level, unable to progress any further. The imperial realm will only be a dream in this lifetime, responded the West Emperor. But for those who can successfully reach this step, the rate of success is undoubtedly high, and they will likely step forward and become great emperors to be. Nothing will happen even if they failed at the attempt, just the inability to get past it. Yi Futian was greatly shocked by this revelation. The cultivation environment in ancient times was so different that no one would ever be killed by tribulations. So, there are people who failed to cross the tribulation but tried to cultivate by cutting down the path? Yi Futian asked. Smart guy, the West Emperor responded. Some will gamble that even if they failed, they are already unparalleled under the emperor and have reached the top of the cultivation world, but there is no hope to reach the imperial realm. Nevertheless, this still motivated plenty of cultivators to take the risk and use their cultivation as a wager to cultivate by cutting the path. In case of failure, the best-case scenario is that they lose their cultivation forever, and the worst is that they will be obliterated by the tribulation from the heavenly path. I heard some elders said that there are those who will cut the path after becoming the great emperor to be. Yi Futian looked at the terrifying scene that unfolded above the sky as the divine light of destruction rained down. However, he was unmoved and continued his dialogue with the West Emperor. Yes, after stepping on the path of the emperors, they have a deeper understanding of their realms, and as great emperors to be, their chances for success were greater after they cut down the path. However, such characters were a bit too cold-blooded, said the West Emperor. They are too ruthless. Yi Futian couldn't imagine someone who had already embarked on the path of the emperors and was a great emperor to be to cut down the path for any reason. This kind of behavior was indeed insane and unimaginable. After becoming the great emperor to be, how could anyone be so reluctant to stay under the heavenly path as to choose to cut off the path out of anger? Who created such a crazy method of cultivation? The terrifying divine tribulation resounded throughout heaven and earth, piercing the 99 heavens. The divine power of order surged all around Yi Futian, protecting the cultivators within this area from being affected by the divine tribulation. Almost, Yi Futian glanced at the sky above and said, as great emperors themselves once, how can they possibly fail? All they needed is just an opportunity, the West Emperor continued. Even as great emperors to be, they are still not able to contend with you. He was highly confident in Yi Futian's strength. Because Yi Futian was also a great emperor to be, he was also obviously a great emperor to be who cut down the path. Do you have this much confidence in my strength? Yi Futian asked. You did it before by slaying the great emperor of the Vajra region and crushing 4 ancient emperors by yourself. At that time, it was very likely that their realms had already been recovered by the great emperors to be, the West Emperor replied. Great emperors to be? Yi Futian showed a look of surprise. Because those several existences from the ancient god clans were once great emperors, their cultivations were unique, different from everyone else's. Because of that, he couldn't really clarify their realms or what they were all about. Yes, the West Emperor nodded. Look at them. Yi Futian turned his attention toward Futian the Great and several others. He found that they were cultivating in different locations. At this time, they had achieved a particular resonance with the heavenly path, which Yi Futian was well aware of. They are absorbing the power of order within the heavenly path. This is what the great emperors-to-be tried to do when they wanted to reach perfection. Like me, they were great emperors from the past, so the changes before becoming great emperors-to-be are not that different. That is not the case with you. The few of them were already great emperors-to-be when they first attacked Yi Imperial Palace. However, we have no idea how they did that. We do know that Yi Imperial Palace had no power to fight back at the time, the West Emperor explained slowly. However, there are some oddities. For example, the differences before and after they became great emperors-to-be were not so great, yet they seem not strong enough. The human realm. An idea surfaced in Yi Futian's mind. Previously, the human ancestor of the human realm must have invited them to cultivate in the human realm. In the human realm, the path of the emperors may have been revealed as well. Is it possible that it might be the little heavenly path? Yi Futian asked. Those who have achieved little heavenly path must have crossed the realms in the little heavenly path, baptized by the divine tribulation, and become great emperors-to-be, but it is different from the real heavenly path. That is a possibility. When the West Emperor heard what Yi Futian said, his eyes sharpened. Yi Futian's guess was plausible. Then, it stood to reason that they hadn't expected the path of the emperors to appear. Otherwise, they might have waited until today instead of being baptized by the divine tribulation in advance. If this was the case, they should be making up for the shortcomings by now and let the heavenly path baptize them. Yi Futian nodded. He understood most of everything now. If the others were great emperors-to-be, his strength was more significant than the others. Could it be that the great emperor-to-be who cultivated by cutting down the path was just a little bit stronger? More importantly, he was far from reaching perfection at that time, nor was he close to it even now. He was making progress every moment. It would be another significant transformation if he achieved perfection, from great emperor-to-be to become an actual emperor. He passed. Just as the West Emperor guessed, that old monster-level character from the Dark World had successfully survived the divine tribulation. Under the baptism of the heavenly path, his body was radiant all over, resonating with the heavenly path as one. However, this temperament would be changed to something different in the outside world. In the direction of the Dark Court, many cultivators looked at the man with some envy, only to hear Lord Shaman say, "Congratulations to the elder for stepping on the path of the emperors." This was the first cultivator who had stepped over after the appearance of the path of the emperors and became a great emperor-to-be. Someone who had already embarked on the true path of the emperors. The great emperor-to-be was a great emperor. It was just a matter of time. Congratulations, elder. Many people in the Dark World bowed and saluted the cultivator. Congratulations, elder. Many people in the Dark World bowed and saluted the cultivator. The great emperor-to-be, the future great emperor. After the collapse of the heavenly path, the path of the emperors was cut off. Today, the 6 emperors ruled the world to maintain orders. No matter how strong the cultivators in attendance today were, they all revered the great emperors. And at this very moment, a future great emperor had emerged. There was some envy and some jealousy, but at the same time, there was respect as well. Before that, even if the other man were an ancient emperor, no one would care about someone who was once an ancient emperor who could not become a great emperor. He would never get enough respect. However, the moment he became the great emperor-to-be, everything changed. Most people from the Dark World were filled with respect, except for a few people, such as the heirs of the great emperors from the other realms, who were a lot less respectful. From their perspective, the appearance of the path of the emperors and the dawn of the age of the gods would usher in their paths to become emperors. Compared to them, these ancient great emperors just took a shortcut. The old gods of the past would indeed be surpassed by the new. That cultivator appeared quite indifferent to all this, nodding calmly. His eyes looked up into the sky, and he didn't seem to care too much about the others' attitude. Everyone who was beneath the great emperors were like mere insects. Stepping onto the path of the emperors was the only way to become a deity. Anyone and anything that was not deity were not worthy of their gaze. He was a great emperor many years ago, and in this day and age, he would be a great emperor again. After the divine tribulation, divine power circulated him as he continued to comprehend and cultivate, ignoring everyone else. He was just a great emperor to be for now. Only when he finally returned to the realm of the great emperor could he be completely at ease, having returned in the truest sense. The divine power circled him resonated with the heavenly path as he was bathing in the divine glory of the heavenly path. He concentrated on cultivating, intending to train his body to reach the perfect great path. His divine power was endless. When everyone saw this, they didn't bother him. It was different at the level of the great emperor. Even his temperament had changed. Before, some could still communicate with that other man, but now, they were probably no longer on the same level. They must also focus on cultivating to fight for an opportunity, so they might also step onto the path of the emperors. Time continued to pass. Above the sky, black lotuses suddenly appeared. They were pitch black and profound, their presence darkened the entire sky. Then, many black lotuses appeared in the boundless world above the heavenly palace. In each black lotus was a terrifying power of destructive rules. What? Many people revealed curious expressions as they looked up at the black lotus flowers that appeared between heaven and earth, especially the massive black lotus born in the sky. Everyone could feel a terrifying aura of destruction in just a glance. As if that black lotus was synonymous with destruction. A black lotus birthed by the heavenly path? Many cultivators were shocked to their core. The black lotus was still growing, continuously pressing downwards, as its destructive divine power grew more frightening. Buzz. Voices rose into the air, and most of them were cultivators from the dark world, including Lord Shaman, the great shaman of the Dark Court. They showed up not far away from the black lotus and saw wisps of black destructive current circulated inside it. The divine power of rules seemed to have condensed into an entity that would inflict death on whatever it touched. This gigantic black lotus spun in the void, and strands of destructive divine power crept towards the surroundings. There was a cultivator who was a little too close. He stretched out his hand boldly as strands of terrifying suction appeared in his palm. Instantly, the suction swallowed the destructive currents into the palm of his hand. But in just an instant, his face changed to an expression of extreme fear. No! In the next moment, his body turned into smoke and ashes and disappeared into wisps of black smoke, which dissipated. It was as if this man had never existed. In the meantime, his soul and spirit had dispersed and scattered. What everyone saw in front of them made their hearts jump, and many involuntarily retreated. There was an extreme wariness and vigilance in their eyes as they focused their attention in front of them. There, wisps of black currents were still circulating, sweeping towards the surroundings. However, the currents that emanated from the black lotus could quickly turn a cultivator in the tribulation plane to dust. "Get back, all of you," Lord Shaman said. Suddenly, many people evacuated from this area, except those top cultivators, who remained around the black lotus. This is the purest divine power of destruction, formed by the order of destruction under the heavenly path, an old man from the dark court piped up. This was an old man who the world had never before seen. He stared at the black lotus. There was a hint of greed in his eyes. This black lotus was a divine item nurtured by the heavenly path. Upon obtaining it, it was easier to perceive the divine power and stronger powers of the order from the heavenly path. Therefore, it made it possible to resonate with the heavenly path and step onto the path of the emperors. Other cultivators had noticed it as well, their eyes fixed on the black lotus. Even if they were not cultivators from the dark world, a hint of greed flashed through their eyes. The divine items bred by the heavenly path had always been the treasures that the world coveted since the beginning of times. Who didn't want to snatch up such an item? Many people stared over there, and some were even moving towards it. Lord Shaman turned his head as he glanced at the cultivators from everywhere and said, "This black lotus of destruction was born from darkness, and it is a divine item that belongs to the dark world. Since this corner of heaven can produce this black lotus, it will inevitably produce other divine items in the future. If you want to fight for this black lotus, do you think you will be able to keep the other items in the future?" Lord Shaman's words made everyone hesitate for a bit as they looked up into the sky. path of the emperors appeared in the heavenly palace as if there was an incarnation of the heavenly path. Would there be more divine items like this in the future? It was very possible. If you don't fight us for this black lotus now, we won't fight for the other divine items in the future, Lord Shaman continued. When he spoke, strands of divine power surged around him, which was beyond terrifying. The aura from everyone began to dissipate. It was not entirely because of what Lord Shaman said. It was mainly because the divine power of destruction was not the divine power they had intended to cultivate and comprehend. In other words, the item didn't mean so much to them. If they risked themselves for of it, the result was not worth it. Futian glanced over there, but he didn't participate in any of it. He merely sat quietly. Afterward, he raised his head and looked at the sky again. He was still contemplating the question before, whether or not consciousness existed in this heaven. If there was consciousness, whose consciousness was it? The heavenly emperor. Why would he want to produce these divine items if it was the heavenly emperor? Was it to help the people in the world become enlightened so that they may ascend onto the path of the emperors? I am beginning to believe the prophecies made by the Buddha of destiny, said Futian in a low voice as the people around him nodded in agreement. Supreme Sword Lord said, I also feel that the era of the gods is coming. The path of the emperors seems to have been revealed as some kind of a sign. Futian turned around and glanced at everyone. Concentrate on cultivating, and don't be distracted by everything on the outside. This world may still contain some great opportunities. Yes, Palace Lord. Everyone nodded. Since Futian said so, maybe he had detected something. When the opportunity arises, one must have the strength to seize it. Futian and the others focused on their cultivation while ignoring the happenings in outer realms. Futian and the others focused on their cultivation while ignoring the happenings in outer realms. Cultivators from other realms did not fight for the Black Lotus. Yet, the people of the Dark World had internal struggles. Which powerful cultivators did not want this dark divine item for themselves? Some of the more powerful cultivators had ended the lives of many weaker ones during the plunder. Eventually, the remaining cultivators of Dark World came to a consensus to encircle the Black Lotus for cultivation. They immediately sealed it in an area and began to grasp the law of divine power of destruction within it. With that, it formed a power balance as everyone was keeping each other in check. So no one would dare to snatch it for themselves. The existence of the Black Lotus caused the cultivators of all realms to revere this land. To think that a divine item would manifest in this place. Would another show up in other places? Could it be related to her? Supreme Sword Lord mumbled. The Sovereign Princess was an unparalleled being after all. This place was Heavenly Palace, the dwelling of a heavenly emperor. She was once the daughter of a heavenly emperor. Could the manifestation of the heavenly path in this domain be connected to her? All the cultivators were focusing on their cultivation as time passed slowly. Most of the powerful cultivators and mighty figures were paving their path of the emperors, especially the group of ancient emperors. They were lucky to have survived through the era of the disintegration of the heavenly path in various ways. After waiting for countless years, their hope to return to Imperial Realm had finally come through. For endless years, numerous ancient cultivators could not reach the last tier, the path of the emperors. During this prolonged time, they had been dreaming of the day when they could finally step on the path of the emperors. Now that the opportunity presented itself before them, they would never miss out. Futian paid no heed to outer realm but focused solely on his cultivation. The resonance between him and the sky was gradually becoming stronger. When a divine power rained from the above and rested on him, many people turned their eyes to look at him. It looks like the previous one was his third divine tribulation. The crowds thought to themselves. As a great emperor to be, Futian could sense the law of the heavenly path, creating a resonance and even using it to strengthen his body. An invisible aura flowed through Futian's body, creating a connection between the nearby cultivators of Imperial Palace and himself. At that moment, those people could feel the divine power that moved around him. At once, Supreme Sword Lord, Lord Qin, and the others tried their best to sense it. Although some had already gone through the second divine tribulation, they still had not been through the most crucial part. So, Yi Futian let them meditate on the most refined law of the heavenly path to help them reach their enlightenment. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. All the powerful cultivators focused on their cultivation, but the time frame was very short for them. After all, many of them were ancient cultivators who had been cultivating for more than 10,000 years. So, this period felt like nothing to them. All the corners in the 99 heavens were eerily silent. All of a sudden, a terrifying aura manifested above the sky. While innumerable people were staring at the sky, some saw a divine mountain above their heads. It was emanating a tremendous divine power that felt dense. All the cultivators who were cultivating opened their eyes immediately and looked at the divine mountain. A significant number of them stopped their cultivation and prepared to plunder it. They did not get their hands on the Black Lotus 3 years ago, so they would not miss the chance again. However, the divine mountain continued to expand its size and eventually covered the entire sky. It spanned from the above of the firmament and grew downward. The divine power released from it caused many to refrain from moving closer to it. Boom! The divine mountain did not stop growing in size. Several ancient cultivators went to the ground beneath the divine mountain. A defeating tremor could be heard as it continued to fall from the sky, causing those ancient cultivators to grunt in affliction. Their backs were bent by it as they spat blood from their mouths. With that, they instantly fled from that place. Upon seeing that, the remaining cultivators who coveted it did not dare to act impetuously. The boundless divine mountain descended to the 99 heavens of heavenly emperor realm. The peak of it seemed to stretch all the way to heaven beyond heaven as if it was boundless. The cultivators from the lower layer of the heavens could feel its presence following its penetration through the uppermost layer. It went on until it penetrated the 99 heavens. The multitude was trembling when they felt a peerless divine power filling the atmosphere. It's a divine item. The people from the lower realm were taken aback after sensing the aura of the divine mountain. Their paths to the 99 heavens were blocked as they penetrated the entire heavens and landed there. This is the second a divine item has fallen from the sky. The crowds glanced at the divine mountain that pierced through the entire 99 heavens and turned to look at the destructive Black Lotus. Even though they could not take the divine item away, they could do their meditation there. Was the will of the heavenly path destroyed following the disintegration of the heavenly path? Many onlookers murmured the question silently. Who could hold such great power? Who could personify the heavenly path and materialize divine items? This feat was something only the heavenly path during ancient times could pull off when it was still ruling the world order. Back then, the 8 legions under the command of the heavenly path were supported by it to rule over the world order in its place. The heavenly emperor realm might replace the gods' continent to become the second hotspot for cultivators from all over the realms, someone muttered. To which everyone agreed. The existence of the heavenly imperial palace following the gods' continent seemed to be the foreshadowing of the significant change in the world and the beginning of the age of the gods. All the powerful cultivators headed to the gods' continent would gather at the heavenly imperial palace. The cultivators from every realm had been showing up to the 99 heavens for the last few years. Ji Wudao and the others were staring at the lower ground from the heavenly palace. They were excited for the new age of the heavenly emperor realm. The heaven realm would restore its past glory and become the prime of the 7 realms. At that time, there was a change in the sky when a divine light illuminated a spot. That was a top-tier cultivator of divine prefecture, who people hardly ever seen him. He had been cultivating solitarily in veiled Enigma Mountain of Donghuang Imperial Palace. He was once an ancient emperor. But at that moment, things were about to change for him as he prepared to prove his path to be a great emperor-to-be. Damn, there goes the birth of another great emperor-to-be, many cultivators remarked quietly. The cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace could not keep their cool after seeing the happening. The world had changed so fast over the years that they could no longer keep up with it. The peak of the Renhuang Plain was once the highest tier. But things changed after the discovery of God's ruins. For that reason, many cultivators grew stronger. With the continuous emergence of the ancient cultivators and ancient emperors, the average tribulation plane cultivators had become unimpressive. The manifestation of the heavenly path in heavenly emperor realm, the dissension of divine item, and the continuous emergence of great emperor-to-be had turned this era into a chaotic one. Nevertheless, they knew that the people they had seen and faced were the top-tier cultivators in this world. The 6 great emperors were just a level above these powerful individuals. Turning their eyes on Yi Futian, they saw him cultivating quietly without any distraction. Apart from helping them with their cultivation, he had to meditate on forming his micro-heavenly path. Only after he completed its formation could he truly become a great emperor. The appearance of the divine mountain had expedited the occurrence of multiple events in the heavenly emperor realm. They caught the attention of cultivators from the 7 realms, who headed toward heaven realm after hearing about them. Even the cultivators from God's continent passed through the space passage to heaven realm. Suddenly, many cultivators would show up in the 99 heavens of heavenly emperor realm every day. It was exactly like what happened when God's continent first appeared back then. Many cultivators were cultivating on every layer of all 99 heavens in the heavenly imperial palace. They surrounded the gigantic divine mountain and cultivated. Its size was so massive that it spanned across the 99 heavens. Countless cultivators could sense the aura of a great emperor from the divine power that it emanated. Many cultivators were cultivating on every layer of all 99 heavens in the heavenly imperial palace. They surrounded the gigantic divine mountain and cultivated. Its size was so massive that it spanned across the 99 heavens. Countless cultivators could sense the aura of a great emperor from the divine power that it emanated. They did not know that it was the most primordial aura of the law of the heavenly path. Most of them could not grasp the fullness of it with their current cultivation level. But even if they could only gain enlightenment in a small fraction, it could improve their cultivation significantly. Only those who had survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path were qualified to grasp the divine power completely. Numerous people gathered around the divine mountain and had their discussions. I've heard that the strongest individuals in the 7 realms have gathered in the 99 heavens. Can anyone confirm this gossip? Someone asked. It's true. Apart from the 6 great emperors, all of the strongest people in the 7 realms have already made it here. One of my seniors told me that our ancestor had informed him that the heavenly path manifested above the 99 heavens. It's a sign of the return of a great emperor. Heavenly path? A person's heart skipped a beat and questioned, "What is the heavenly path? Have you not heard of the disintegration of the heavenly path during the Age of the Gods?" Similar conversations were held everywhere. The cultivators of the 7 realms began to hear of this once untold secret. The elites had already known about it since the gods' ruin first appeared. However, the change in the heavenly imperial palace caused the secret of the heavenly path and some details about the battle of the gods to be leaked. How many of the elites will become the great emperor? Buddha of Destiny had prophesied the emergence of the Age of the Gods in the gods' ruins continent. Is the prophecy really coming true? If the Buddha of Destiny could look into the future, then the prophecy might become a reality soon. In that case, won't it mean that Donghuang the Great has less than 30 years left? Some of the crowd's hearts skipped a beat upon hearing that. They could not imagine that Donghuang the Great, who had united and reigned divine prefecture for the last 400+ years, would soon relinquish his fate of the emperor. Could a great emperor be toppled? 2 decades was too short of a time. It would pass in the blink of an eye. Could that person be Yi Futian? If it were Yi Futian, he would highly likely become a great emperor. Otherwise, how else could an era be ended? Yi Futian knew nothing about the people of outer realm speculations. He was focused on his cultivation at that time. There was a silhouette inside his world. It was formed by the will of his micro-heavenly path. His inner world continued to develop under the influence of the will. Eventually, several divine mountains that spanned across the entire realm materialized. The presence of the domain of destruction could be felt all around. While he was grasping the power of the heavenly path, he was also perfecting his inner world. On the outside, the people around him had been improving in their cultivation a lot. Some of them even survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path. Still, no one reached the tier of half-deity plane. Nevertheless, he could feel that West Emperor was about to face his tribulation. The divine power surrounded the latter while rains would fall within the vicinity from time to time. The aura of the heavenly path above the sky created a resonance with him. As a former ancient emperor, his cultivation level was already sufficient. Therefore, when the path of the emperors appeared, ancient cultivators like them would not find it hard to become the great emperor. After all, they were all once the great emperors. Many powerful cultivators surrounded the divine mountain and cultivated. Like the destructive black lotus, this divine mountain was also a divine item. They could help the cultivators gain enlightenment on the power of the law of the great path. Even so, no one other than the ancient emperors successfully broke through the barrier of the cultivation level. It was not something one could easily attain. The cultivators in the 99 heavens ignored the changes of the lower worlds. Even though people came from different parts of the realms, they paid no heed to any of the crowds. They solely focused on their cultivation. As time passed, there were 2 more ancient emperors who went through their tribulation and entered the great emperor-to-be plane. After such a long time, they could finally revert to their peak form. Yet, they did not become impatient, but they cultivated in solitude. At that point, great emperor-to-be plane was no longer invincible in that world. They had to return to the pinnacle of their strength to regain their true self. The death of Vajra realm great emperor had taught them a lesson. Although they were ancient people, the people of the current time could hold a candle to them. The restriction in the world had cut off the path of the emperors from the latter. Or else, they would not be in their current state where great emperors were in decline. West Emperor was about to face his divine tribulation. The fact of it caused the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace to jump for joy. After all, he was one of them. After he survived the tribulation and became a great emperor-to-be, the overall strength of Yi Imperial Palace would further increase. Nevertheless, Yi Futian did not pay much attention to it, seeing that the level he aimed for was already beyond the great emperor-to-be plane. He did not even go to watch West Emperor's tribulation. At the end of the day, that body belonged to Shichiao. Every time he thought of her, he felt sorrowful. The cultivators of West Imperial Palace had mixed feelings about it. However, the return of a great emperor was good news for them. They would have a great emperor among their lineup and become an authentic emperor-level force. Hence, their lifelong dream would finally come true. 3 years passed in a flash. That day, an intimidating divine power emanated from above the sky. Everyone lifted their heads to look at the sky while their hearts palpitated like mad. Will another divine item manifest itself again? 3 years. The gap between the appearance of the destructive Black Lotus and the divine mountain is 3 years. Now, another 3 years have passed. Could this be a coincidence or a fixed pattern? Upon realizing the unique time each of the divine item had appeared, they were taken aback. An unparalleled divine light beamed downward from the sky. It was brimmed with a peerless divine power of space. Following that, the onlookers noticed a divine door dropped from the sky with divine light encircling it. The door seemed to have existed in another dimension. It was packed with the divine power of the law of space. The door continued to descend and stopped above the 99 heavens. The onlooking cultivators' hearts skipped a beat upon seeing that. Suddenly, a few silhouettes could be seen rushing toward that massive divine door. When they stretched their hands to reach the divine door, their hands went through it like it was a void. I couldn't touch it. This must be a spatial divine item. A cultivator of empty divine realm could be seen moving forward. The door of space seemed to be in front of them. Yet they could only see and feel it but not touch it. I'm afraid only those who had gained enlightenment on the purest form of the divine spatial rule power could touch the door of space and get the divine item for themselves, the empty divine realms cultivator said. Why do I get the feeling that this divine item is prepared for the empty divine realm? Such a casual remark caused the hearts of the crowd to race rapidly. After setting their eyes on the destructive Black Lotus, they thought, if this door of space is prepared for empty divine realm, the destructive Black Lotus must be prepared for dark world. What about the divine mountain? Could it be that all of these are not a coincidence but the will of man? The hearts of the onlookers pounded like a drum as they glanced at the sky. If this were a will of man, it would mean that it was the will of the heavenly path. Who was the embodiment of the heavenly path? They all felt that the heavenly path was a chess game where all living things were pawns. In ancient times, the 8 legions under the command of the heavenly path ruled the order of the world. In ancient times, the 8 legions under the command of the heavenly path ruled the order of the world. Would the heavenly path edify the 8 legions this time? Was that why divine items had descended from the sky? Did the heavenly path belong to heavenly emperor realm? Could it be that the will of the heavenly emperor did not disappear? The world was divided into the 7 realms at that time. If one were to include original realm, it would be 8 realms in total. In other words, the heavenly path might drop 7 or even 8 divine items from the sky. If they were to manifest once every 3 years, it would take 18 or 21 years. The destructive Black Lotus undoubtedly belonged to Dark World. Likewise, the door of space was clearly a gift to Empty Divine Realm. At that time, the cultivators of Empty Divine Realm moved toward the door of space and encircled it. Although they could not get hold of it yet, the divine power of the law of space that it emanated could help them cultivate. Nonetheless, some other cultivators went near it anyways. After all, the cultivators of Empty Divine Realm were not the only ones who cultivated in the way of space. Many cultivators from different parts of the world were proficient in the power of the great path of space. Greetings! Since each realm will have its divine item, we, people of Empty Divine Realm, will claim ownership of the door of space. Hence, we will not participate in the scramble for other divine items, said Dugawushia, a cultivator of Empty Divine Realm. He was surrounded by an entourage of powerful cultivators from Empty Mountain. Although these divine items were compatible with cultivators from certain realms, they could also help people from all parts of the world gain benefits in their cultivation. Hence, they could not conquer more than one divine item for themselves. So, they would miss the chance to claim one of them as their own. The cultivators from other realms most likely would not be willing to tussle with each other. After all, divine items that were suitable for them might appear later. Many cultivators were ready for action, but no one tried to seize it in the end. Just like how they gave up the destructive Black Lotus, they could do the same by giving away the door of space to the Empty Divine Realm. No matter what, they would take one of the divine items for themselves. However, who had the ownership over the divine mountain? Cultivators from all over the world surrounded the divine mountain in the 99 heavens and cultivated. No one took it for themselves yet. Futian's silhouette remained in his inner world and watched the changes within it while meditating on the heavenly path. He had gained much enlightenment in the past 6 years. He was the first to sense the divine power when the heavenly path had dropped the Black Lotus, divine mountain, and door of space. The Black Lotus represented the law of destruction. The divine mountain represented strength and stability. The door of space represented the law of space. The stars surrounded Futian's inner world. Feeling slightly fluttery, he stretched his hand in the air, trying to catch something. At once, a star flew in his direction rapidly. It gradually became smaller until it was the size of a speck that hovered around his palm. A flower could contain an entire world. A leaf could be a miniature Bodhi tree, Futian murmured. There were many continents in the original realm, including the Ziwei segmentum. It was filled with stars that dispersed across the sky. The evolution of the stars are endless worlds, Futian mumbled. Every star in the firmament could hold a world. After swaying his palm, the tiny star was launched into the air. Immediately after, the entire atmosphere brimmed with innumerable particles that expanded continuously. In the end, all of them turned into stars while frightening noises could be heard. Each of the stars slowly turned into endless worlds. As a result, Futian's inner world continued to grow in size as if it had just evolved. Every world within the stars seemed to transform into his original world where heaven and earth were formed, including the power of yin and yang and the 5 elements. They continued to perfect the worlds within. With that, Futian continued with his cultivation. A complete law of the heavenly path should be all-encompassing and packed with countless divine power of the law. Only then could the world of his heavenly path continue to evolve from micro-heavenly path into the complete macro-heavenly path. If he could finish this step, his world would be considered perfect. Then, he could permit the cultivators of the world to meditate inside his world. The meditation and evolution were extremely time-consuming, causing Yi Futian to be lost track of time. Another 3 years had passed without his realization. At that time, Yi Futian was muttering something inside his world. 1 turned into 2, 2 split into 3, 3 spawned all things. He gained enlightenment on infinity. Infinity was boundless and immeasurable. There was a change in the sky on the outside. Following the emanation of a petrifying and sharp aura, the heavenly path materialized a divine sword that descended from the firmament. It seemed to have control over the rules in the world. Falling from the sky, it traversed the ether and the land. It pierced through the entire 99 heavens like the divine mountain. Sensing the spine-chilling divine power the divine sword released, all the cultivators raised avaricious smirks on their faces. Many influential individuals moved toward the divine sword to use it for their cultivation. The cultivators of the human realm were the fastest. In no time, they encircled and guarded the skies of the divine sword. Next, Di Hao announced loudly, "We, the cultivators of human realm, will claim ownership of this sword." Their speculation might have turned out to be true. The heavenly path would give birth to a divine item once every 3 years. The crowds coveted the divine sword. After all, a myriad of cultivators in the world had been cultivating the way of the sword. For instance, West Emperor, Supreme Sword Lord, Yi Wuchen, and the other people of the Yi Imperial Palace were cultivators of the way of the sword. Therefore, the thought of getting close to the divine sword for cultivation ran through their minds when they caught sight of it. At that moment, Yi Futian opened his eyes as he knew the people's thinking. All those years of letting them meditate on the power of the law of the heavenly path improved their cultivation significantly. If they could grasp the purest form of the power of the law, it could benefit them considerably in their cultivation. "I do not agree," Yi Futian piped up. Upon hearing that, a concourse of onlookers turned to look at him. The cultivators of the human realm were scowling at him. Di Hao's glare was especially disdainful. The divine items that had descended from the sky do not belong to anyone. Every cultivator has the right to do their cultivation with them. Yi Futian warned with a stern voice that no one would dare to question. The words that came out of Yi Futian's mouth were undoubtedly nonsensical. Although everyone understood his words, it all came down to their strength at the end of the day. The reason the Emperor-level forces thought they could claim ownership over those items was that they had the strength to back them up. After all, each of them represented the 7 realms. Yet, as Yi Futian was the one who said that, it could not be considered nonsense. At that point, he already had the power to turn the tide of the situation according to his will. "I don't care how you people allocate the divine items between yourselves, but the cultivators from Yi Imperial Palace shall cultivate at each place whenever they want. No one shall stop them from doing so," Yi Futian declared. Most of the people's pupils shrunk when they heard it. The strongest cultivators in the 7 realms were gathered in that place. Yet Yi Futian had the guts to utter such domineering words out of his mouth. A question was aroused in the minds of the onlookers as they recalled the event of him finishing off Vajra Realm Great Emperor. What is his current cultivation level? "Go!" Yi Futian ordered the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace around him, disregarding all the people of the 7 realms. The West Emperor, Supreme Sword Lord, and the others moved forward. Both the West Emperor and Supreme Sword Lord cultivated in the way of the sword. So, the 2 of them walked toward the divine sword. The West Emperor, Supreme Sword Lord, and the others moved forward. Both the West Emperor and Supreme Sword Lord cultivated in the way of the sword. So, the 2 of them walked toward the divine sword. Following that, Yi Wuchen, Gu Donglu, and the like approached the divine sword. On the other hand, Fang Xiyuan and the group headed in the Door of Space's direction, while Ling Long led many people toward the divine mountain. The cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace acted according to Yi Futian's instruction. All of them wanted divine items related to their cultivation. To think that they would dare to do his bidding without hesitation just went to display their absolute trust toward him. Because of their deep faith in Yi Futian, they did what he had asked without delay, meditating with each divine item they deemed fit. On the vast land of the 99 heavens stood many cultivators from every part of the world, who were glaring at the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace. Would anyone dare to lay a finger on them? If someone were to assault Yi Futian's subordinates to kill him, would he not be worried that they might be killed? Or did he believe that no one dared to do so? However, Yi Futian was the one who ended the life of Vajra Realm Great Emperor. Those who wish to lay a finger on the people of Yi Imperial Palace might need to reconsider carefully. Still, no one would dare risk killing one of them. At that moment, several cultivators from the direction of the human realm's crowd moved forward. All of them emanated blood-curdling divine power from within their bodies, giving off an aura that could hold a candle to the likes of Vajra Realm Great Emperor and the ancient emperors of the ancient god clan. So they've already survived the third divine tribulation and reached the great emperor to be plain? Yi Futian remarked with a frown. He did not care much about the human realm previously, but it seemed like the powerful cultivators there were more than he had imagined. Human ancestor must have formed his micro-heavenly path, Yi Futian murmured to himself. Back then, the human realm extended an invitation to him, asking him to be absorbed into their side. In retrospect, they must have been trying to win over the powerful individuals from different parts of the world since the human ancestor had secured a path of the emperors. The ancient emperors of ancient god clan from Vajra realm walked on the path of the emperors after they headed to the human realm. Nevertheless, Yi Futian did not care much about it. He could kill Vajra Realm Great Emperor and held his ground against 4 great emperors to be back then. But his strength had already increased dramatically since then as his inner world continued to evolve. His strength would be increased each time he evolved. So, his current might was equal to that of a great emperor to be. At the end of his evolution, he would become a true great emperor. Noticing Yi Futian's gaze, the cultivators from human realms surged their divine power like the gods in ancient times. They were all ancient emperors themselves. The aura they emanated and their supercilious air were matchless. One of them took a step forward. His divine power suppressed the location of Yi Futian from a far distance. However, he did not lay a finger on the people headed toward the divine sword. If they could not defeat Yi Futian, they were essentially signing their death warrant. If Yi Futian were a pushover, the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace would not survive until that day. An intimidating authority of heaven filled the entire atmosphere of the 99 heavens. All the cultivators who stood between them retreated from the spot immediately, leaving the sight of a boundless land. It was as if they were the only 2 people who existed there. Great emperors to be. 2 of them? Many cultivators muttered while glancing at the ancient emperor from the human realm and Yi Futian. Back then, they had only heard about the story of Yi Futian killing Vajra Realm Great Emperor and slaying Haoyan the Great. Would they be able to witness the battle of ancient emperor this time? Boom! A loud rumble could be heard. The will of devastation filled up the atmosphere. Simultaneously, a purple light of destruction was generated between the ancient emperor and Yi Futian. A thunder attribute divine power, Yi Futian mumbled after sensing the power. Innumerable light particles formed rays of purple light of destruction. Every particle was brimmed with peerless destructive power. This ancient emperor must have gained enlightenment on the purest form of the way of thunder source and assimilated it with his own divine power. Yi Futian could sense immense destructive power within each particle of the rays of divine light. Imagine every particle that contained Jiutian divine thunder. How terrifying would the explosive force be? One of them could easily penetrate the body of a powerful cultivator and disintegrate it completely. However, when the divine power touched Yi Futian, the divine light could not even pierce through his body's defense. Clang, clang. Shrill noises could be heard when an apocalyptic purple divine light lit up the atmosphere while covering Yi Futian's body. The fabric of space over there was nearly torn by the divine power of destruction. Yet, he stood in the middle of it without moving an inch. His body was no longer just flesh and blood. It had transformed into the great path. Cultivators on the sidelines could tell how petrifying the divine power of the ancient Tianshan of the human realm was. Their blood ran cold even though that power was not directed at them. The destructive light penetrated the land beneath Yi Futian's feet and traversed the 99 heavens did not improve the situation. Some unfortunate people were instantly reduced to ashes by the light beam. None of them even had the time to react. The divine power that penetrated the 99 heavens caught the attention of a myriad of crowds. They were aghast at the sight of it. At that time, countless powerful cultivators gathered in that realm and occupied every layer. The onlookers witnessed many people incinerated by the divine light beamed from above. Was it the battle of the gods? It's Yi Futian. Someone looked past the layers of space to the source of the beam of divine light and saw Yi Futian, who stood still at the middle of the attack of the divine power, not making a sound. Old gods, Yi Futian piped up, this is no longer your era. He spoke in an indifferent tone. Yet, his voice traveled to the ears of the crowds in the 99 heavens. They were taken aback by his remark, by which he called the ancient emperors old gods, and that this was no longer their era. In other words, he was saying they were beings out of time. Boom! The destructive divine light became increasingly fearsome. In a flash, the man held a long spear brimming with divine power in his hand. The sight of the destructive divine light illuminated the whole atmosphere was terrifying to behold. Shooting Yi Futian a glare, he launched the spear downward, and it broke through the void while the destructive divine light lit up the sky. Nonetheless, Yi Futian's reaction speed was exceedingly fast. He was so nimble that the onlookers could not catch up to him. His motions were faster than the speed of thoughts. Before anyone could react, they noticed Yi Futian raise his hand high and point toward the long spear. A seemingly simple pointing motion caused the entire atmosphere to tremble. Then, divine light could be seen firing at the other party's divine light, putting out the latter upon impact and launching toward the destructive spear. Bang! Following a loud bang, the massive spear broke into pieces. The powerful attack passed through the destroyed spear and hit the divine body of the ancient emperor. The ancient emperor could hear a deep groan as he felt like his divine frame was about to shatter. In the next moment he spat blood out of his mouth. The sight of it caused the hearts of the onlookers in the 99 heavens to pound like crazy. They were looking at the happening above the sky intensely. A flick of his finger could spill the blood of a god. Just how powerful had Yi Futian become? He must have reached the tier of great emperor to be. At that time, they recounted Yi Futian calling the ancient emperor old god earlier. In other words, he was saying that the era of the ancient times' heavenly path had already passed. Even if the old gods returned, it was no longer their time to shine. Would Yi Futian and his crazy powerful bunch of cultivators kick-start a brand new epic? Many human realm cultivators turned their eyes to the injured ancient Tianshan. They were wondering what kind of power was stored within the flick of Yi Futian's finger. Many human realm cultivators turned their eyes to the injured ancient Tianshan. They were wondering what kind of power was stored within the flick of Yi Futian's finger. What kind of divine power was that? Someone asked through telepathy. They were taken aback by the explosive force of the flick of Yi Futian's finger. They knew the strength of their comrade. Yet he could not handle the attack. I'm not sure. The divine power within the flick of his finger was substantial and profound, like the divine mountain. Some part of it felt like the divine power of the stars. He must have packed the divine power of the stars into that flick, the ancient Tianshan answered, much to the other cultivators' surprise. As fellow great emperors to be, your cultivation level should technically be the same, even if he were a path slayer. We've met a handful of the divine power of the stars users before. By right, you should have been able to destroy it with your divine power. Even if you could not shatter it, you should have ended up like that, a person remarked telepathically in confusion. Every cultivator in this world gained their divine power through enlightenment. But there were consistent patterns. Many similar abilities could be categorized as a type of divine power. The divine power of the stars was one of them. So, it was not a rare ability. Unless it was the ultimate form of the divine power of the stars, someone commented. The pupils of the human realm cultivators shrunk after hearing that. The final form of the divine power of the stars' evolution was the divine power of the world. If Yi Futian gained the divine power of the world through his meditation, his strength among the great emperors would be top tier after reaching that plane of cultivation. There were ranks between divine powers. We should focus on our cultivation so that we would reach the perfection plane the soonest possible, one of them said. Everyone nodded in agreement. To prevent the problems from getting out of hand, they continued with their cultivation. Once they perfected their great path, they would become a bona fide great emperor. If they could reach that tier before Yi Futian, they could wipe the floor with him even if he gained the divine power of the world. With that, the cultivators of human realm acquiesced that the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace would cultivate around the area of the divine sword and gain enlightenment on the divine power within it. Likewise, no one stopped the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace from entering the other areas of the divine items. Although the people of Empty Divine Realm felt a little dissatisfied, they were not overly opposing as they both had common enemies. The cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace who were proficient in the power of the great path of space got near to the divine door of space and meditated on the will of the great path of the law of space. At that time, the cultivators around the world thought Yi Imperial Palace was the only force without a great emperor. Yet, its cultivators dare occupy the cultivation resources of all the other forces. This is the only thing none of the other emperor-level forces can pull off. All things considered, it was all due to Yi Futian's might. As a person who became a great emperor to be, no one could hold a candle to him apart from the 6 great emperors. Although all the strongest individuals in the world, including many ancient emperor cultivators, were gathered at that place, only a handful of them could hold their own in a battle with him, except if there were extremely powerful cultivators lurking in the dark. Countless cultivators on the ground of the 99 heavens saw the might of the flicker and were stunned by it. Just how powerful had Yi Futian become? Back then, the 5 great emperors of the 5 ancient god clans purged countless cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace. At that time, Yi Futian narrowly escaped death. But who would have thought that the incident would be the cause of his invincibility currently? If the 5 ancient emperors could foresee this outcome, they would have used other methods to finish him off. They would not have looked at him condescendingly and given him time to take a break and eventually survived the 3rd tribulation. Would they finally regret their actions back then? The world cultivation once revered the demigod list. But near-deity cultivators were no longer considered influential in the current world. The discovery of the ruins of the gods caused the birth of countless near-deity cultivators. The great emperors of ancient times continuously showed up around as well. At that point, people must be focused on the great emperor-to-be list and perhaps the great emperor list shortly. Everyone had the hunch that the prophecy of Buddha of destiny would come true. The age of the gods would take place in no time. The time when the ruins of the gods appeared was the catalyst. It was a historic moment. Will the strength of Yi Futian threaten Donghuang the Great? Some of the crowd recounted the remaining duration of Donghuang the Great's fate of the emperor, which only had around 20 years left. Everyone believed that the age of the gods would take place. But even if Yi Futian became a great emperor, could he end Donghuang the Great's fate of the emperor? Donghuang the Great had been a great emperor for almost 500 years. This talented genius was already an extremely powerful cultivator back then. No one knew the extent of his current strength. Many thoughts ran through the minds of the cultivators of divine prefecture. Most of them were glaring at Yi Futian hostile looks while scowling at the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace in displeasure. A significant number of divine prefecture's cultivators were meditating around the divine mountain to gain enlightenment on its power. Donghuang Duan was there as well. How arrogant of him to behave like that when he is just a great emperor to be. Did he forget that the existence of the 6 great emperors? Someone criticized. The owner of the voice was Duyu. He was a powerful near-deity cultivator at that time. As the direct disciple of Donghuang the Great, his talent was extraordinary. Even though he had reached near-deity plane, he was still no match for Yi Futian. Things would get ugly if you push your luck too much. He hasn't even become a great emperor. Did he think that he could already stand at the pinnacle of the cultivation world? A person from Divine Prefecture retorted. Although they could not handle Yi Futian currently, they did not like his arrogance. He was still alive because the 6 great emperors did not lay a finger on him. Yi Futian turned his eyes on Du Yu, who was talking. With a thought, his and the other people's faces turned pale, and they immediately fell from the sky as an invisible divine power pressed them down. Although they unleashed the aura of the great path from their bodies, they could not stop themselves from descending. Beads of sweat broke out on their foreheads while they plummeted downward. At the very least, I don't dare to talk big in front of the 6 great emperors. You two are more arrogant than I am, Yi Futian retorted. At once, both of them felt a quiver in their bodies. Then, they grunted as the color drained from their faces. All the cultivators understood Yi Futian's sarcasm toward the two of them. The difference between their strength and the former was like the gap of the man's might and the 6 great emperors. Therefore, Du Yu and the other person were running their mouths before him was pretty ridiculous. Zip your lips and focus on your cultivation first before you come and talk to me, Yi Futian remarked. With that, he ignored the rest of them and closed his eyes to continue his meditation. He knew better than anyone else about his current circumstance. If he took a step forward, he would achieve greater heights. But if he fell back, things might turn ugly for him. So it all came down to the 6 great emperors' attitude. Devil World, Empty Divine Realm, and Dark World had the intention to help him fight Donghuang the Great. Meanwhile, the human ancestor and the Lord of all Buddha's thoughts remained unknown. The 6 great emperors' attitude would decide his fate. Thus, he would not leave Heavenly Emperor Realm if he did not reach the Great Emperor Plane this time. Since the heavenly path manifested in this realm, he might as well stay here and meditate on it with his subordinates. His current focus was to perfect his micro-heavenly path, so that when he faced Donghuang the Great again, he could stand a chance in the battle with the latter. At that moment, he was uncertain about the magnitude of the 6 great emperors' power. He could only gauge their strength after becoming a great emperor and fighting them. Should he become a great emperor through path-slaying cultivation, his strength would be comparable to that of Donghuang the Great. Even though the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture were furious after hearing Yi Futian's remarks, they remained calm. Even though the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture were furious after hearing Yi Futian's remarks, they remained calm. After all, strength was everything in this world. Yi Futian could suppress them just with his thoughts alone, and they could not even budge an inch. So, they were not qualified to challenge him. With that, they continued their meditation to improve their cultivation level. Only after reaching the Great Emperor to be plain could they stand a chance to regain their dignity. Donghuang Diyuan turned to look at Yi Futian, still silent. The Great Emperor to be cultivators behind her were eager for a battle with Yi Futian to see how powerful the latter was, the one who reached their level through path-slaying cultivation. The manifestation of the heavenly path will bring about the age of the gods. Never had I ever expected to see the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture remain snobbish in the face of the changing of the world, a cultivator of Dark Court commented. Within this heavenly path, a great emperor equal in strength and status with the current 6 great emperors shall be born. The remark indicated that Yi Futian would be equal to the 6 great emperors if he became a great emperor within this heavenly path. In other words, he would not pale in comparison to Donghuang the Great of the Divine Prefecture. When that happened, the cultivators under Donghuang the Great's umbrella would have no right to converse with him. While this comment might sound like a compliment that Yi Futian would become a great emperor, it had a slight hint of something sinister. It could also remind Yi Futian and Donghuang Imperial Palace people that the former could become a great emperor here. Yi Futian remained indifferent. Still, he could read the thoughts of Dark World's cultivators. Although he had connections with the people of the Dark Court, he knew for sure that the others were siding with him for their benefit, apart from Qingyao. They stood on the same side because they had a common enemy. But each of them had their own agenda. Both forces of the Dark World and the Empty Divine Realm must be in a dilemma. On one side, they wanted Yi Futian to deal with Donghuang Imperial Palace. Yet, he would be difficult for them to control if he became too powerful. But at that point, none of them could hold a candle to him. After hearing those words, many cultivators of Donghuang Imperial Palace furrowed their brows. Would a great emperor be born within this heavenly path? What would happen if Yi Futian continued his cultivation here and eventually reached the great emperor plane? Such an outcome was not easy for them to swallow. Countless people lifted their heads and gazed at the sky in contemplation. Although they were unwilling to see it happen, they could do nothing to stop it from playing out. Should they lay their fingers on Yi Futian? But they knew they could not do that. Just a little while ago, a few cultivators of the human realm had already tried it. Yi Futian paid no heed to all the things that happened and focused solely on his cultivation. As long as he was present, the safety of Yi Imperial Palace's cultivators was guaranteed. They could enter the areas of every divine item for their cultivation. Meanwhile, he continued to meditate on his micro-heavenly path. The most important thing at the moment was for him to perfect his micro-heavenly path. The world inside Yi Futian had developed beyond the standard of a normal world. It had become a universe with endless realms and worlds. All the worlds inside the universe were slowly perfecting themselves. Simultaneously, his micro-heavenly path governed all the laws and orders of the universe. At that time, Yi Futian suddenly recalled the world of Buddhism. That world was situated on top of the Bodhi tree. And the tree must be the foundation of the great path of the world of Buddhism. As the thought crossed his mind, he wondered if the Buddha had already perfected his micro-heavenly path. Buddhism was a class of its own. So the idea was not too far-fetched. If one proved their path through Bodhi, they could create a Western heaven world of Buddhism. Once he completed his micro-heavenly path and reached the great emperor plane, the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace and Ziwei Segmentum could enter his world for meditation. In a nutshell, he would be the embodiment of the heavenly path and the world. It could all happen with a thought. Yi Futian suddenly appeared in the boundless world. With a thought, a chaotic domain manifested within the world and sealed it from the outside. In some places, dimensional turbulence brimmed with space-time ripping path began to show up. Most of the law of great paths had many usages. The law of the great path of space was one of them. Yi Futian was trying to perfect the law of space of his micro-heavenly path at that time. As time passed, the cultivators outside were slowly improving and transforming while Yi Futian continued his cultivation. Many ancient emperor cultivators showed up one after another continuously. They went through the divine tribulation and reached the great emperor to be plain. It was a path that they had once gone through but had to redo. Furthermore, they were taken aback by the similarities between the current heavenly path and ancient times. They were wondering if this was the rebirth of the ancient heavenly path. Could it be that Heavenly Imperial Palace collected and kept a small part of the heavenly path after its collapse? It's about time. At that moment, the crowd looked up at the sky and anticipated the event that was about to happen. The end of the 3-year gap was already around the corner. 3 years ago, a divine sword had descended from the sky. What would the following divine item be this time? Countless people were waiting in anticipation. Apart from them, a myriad of people on the ground beneath the 99 heavens was waiting for the manifestation of the next divine item as well. Ever since the divine items penetrated the 99 heavens, they brought forth fortune and favor for everyone. They had helped many people in their cultivation. Their only hope was that the next divine item would not be monopolized by one of the forces. If the heavenly path had a will of its own, which of the remaining realms would it unleash the divine item for? Many people speculated in their minds. Could it be the devil world, the divine prefecture, or the heavenly realm? Was the divine sword prepared for human realm? No one knew the will of the heavenly path. As it went on, an extraordinary aura emanated from the sky above. A terrifying dark divine light beamed as the crowds raised their heads to glance at the firmament. All of them could sense the might of the authority of heaven. Right then, a black divine item appeared before the eyes of the crowds. It was packed with a peerless will of darkness while it slowly solidified. "It's a divine battle axe," someone exclaimed as the black divine item showed up. A gigantic divine battle axe descended from the sky while unleashing a domineering and sharp aura. Immediately, the people beneath the divine battle axe retreated from the spot. The spine-chilling aura caused many cultivators to open their eyes and stare at the massive black divine battle-axe that split open the 99 heavens and penetrated through it. Even Yi Futian opened his eyes after sensing the aura of the divine item. His pupils shrunk as he peered at the black divine battle-axe and thought, this one must be prepared for the devil world. Their speculation could very well turn out to be true. Could it be that the heavenly path wished to gift each realm a divine item? Should that be the case, what was the purpose of the heavenly path then? Did the heavenly path intend to govern the rule and order of this world? The remnants of Devil Imperial Palace were staring at the black divine battle-axe as if it was meant for them. Chapter 28:15 The Battle of Great Emperors to Be. Chapter 28:15 The Battle of Great Emperors to Be. What kind of power of the law of the heavenly path is this? Many cultivators murmured as they stared at the scary black battle-axe. According to ancient legends, the world was chaotic before the manifestation of the heavenly path. Within the world of chaos, the will of the heavenly path was born. Right then, a battle-axe had separated the sky from the earth. And that was the divine power of the law of creation in ancient times. Could this divine battle-axe be manifested from the divine power of creation? One of the ancient emperor mumbled as he glanced at the black battle-axe in stupefaction. All the manifested divine items brimmed with extraordinary divine power of the heavenly path were terrifying. The divine sword and the door of space were not common objects either. To think that the black divine battle-axe would have such an exceptional backstory. If this was indeed the divine power of the law of creation, just how powerful would it be if one were to master it? What is the origin of this heavenly path? The crowd was taken aback. Their hearts were full of questions no one knew the answers to. It was as if this heavenly path was from ancient times. However, the collapse of the heavenly path back then was a solid fact. The present ancient emperors were witnesses to the event. Therefore, no one could explain the origin of this heavenly path or who controlled it, including questions like why would it give each realm a divine item? The divine item of Devil World was the almighty divine battle-axe of creation. If the people of the Devil World got their hands on it, how big of a threat would the Devil Imperial Palace become? The demonic lord back then was one of those who had assaulted the heavenly path. Hence, no one could understand the happening before their very eyes. Although they could not comprehend the situation, it did not prevent them from moving toward the divine battle-axe to meditate on the divine power of the law within it. If it were the genuine divine power of creation from the ancient age of chaos, the power would be incredibly great even if they could only grasp a hint of it. Nevertheless, the cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace furrowed their brows. Previously, several emperor-level forces had occupied one of the divine items. Even though this divine battle-axe was prepared for Devil Imperial Palace, many other cultivators did not give up on it. Instead, they moved toward the location of the divine battle-axe. Yu Sheng furrowed his brows, moved his gaze around, and declared, "Most of you have already claimed one of the divine items. So now I am claiming this divine battle-axe for the Devil Imperial Palace. Only the cultivators of Devil World and Yi Imperial Palace may come and utilize it. Any questions?" The people of Devil Imperial Palace were eager to get their hands on the black battle-axe. A human realm cultivator chided in displeasure. "You lot said that you would not fight for other divine items after claiming the divine sword for yourselves. So, tell me, what are you doing now?" Yi Futian replied indifferently. "Since every realm will receive their divine item and you've already chosen yours, won't it make sense for the Devil Imperial Palace to claim the divine battle-axe?" Right after Yi Futian spoke, a formidable divine power exploded from his body and filled up the entire void with his might. At once, all the cultivators turned to look at him. If Yi Futian were to interfere with this matter, it would be troublesome for the cultivators from other realms after considering the Devil Imperial Palace and Yi Futian's strength combined. Several emperors-to-be took a step forward as they were unwilling to give it up just yet. They were once the great emperors during ancient times. Hence, they were haughty by nature. Now that the divine battle-axe was before their eyes, they would never walk away without trying to scramble for it. A few cultivators stepped forward simultaneously on several locations as they unleashed their divine power that pressurized the ground from the sky. In a blink, the might of Tianxin descended and covered the place where Yi Futian was. Every cultivator at the scene stared at the happening and thought, is there going to be a battle between emperors-to-be? Earlier on, Yi Futian had displayed his overpowering strength by inflicting significant damage to an emperor-to-be with just a flick of his finger. Despite that, a few emperors-to-be fired attacks at Yi Futian to seize their chance to cultivate on it. Yi Futian immediately got up and stepped into the void. At once, a blood-curdling divine power pressed on his body from the firmament. Yet it could not break through his defense at all. The area around Yi Futian seemed to turn into his impenetrable domain. What a powerful defense! The pupils of the onlookers shrunk as they watched Yi Futian in action. Both his offense and defense were overwhelmingly strong. Even the combined attacks of the emperors-to-be could not take him down. It's a battle of emperors-to-be. The cultivators of Heavenly Realm were gathered at Heavenly Palace, which was above the sky. Ji Wudao looked down from there with an intrigued look. According to the prophecy, the battle of the emperors-to-be might be the prologue of the Age of the Gods. Someday in the future, there will be a battle between great emperors. This clash might very well be the foreshadowing of the war of the future great emperors, so he was looking forward to it. A huge area in the sky of the 99 heavens was deserted. 3 great emperors-to-be could be seen standing at 3 different locations. When the gods' might was released, each of them unleashed an overwhelming aura that all the cultivators in the 99 heavens could feel. A huge area in the sky of the 99 heavens was deserted. 3 great emperors-to-be could be seen standing at 3 different locations. When the gods' might was released, each of them unleashed an overwhelming aura that all the cultivators in the 99 heavens could feel. They were all beings who walked on the path of the emperors were emperors-to-be. Yi Futian stood still on the ground beneath the 3 of them, his white hair flying in the wind. He was emanating a peerless spirit as if he was unbeatable in this world. By himself, he could defeat the myriad of cultivators. Many divine swords of devastation emerged in the sky above. All of them were black. They destroyed everything on their path wherever they went. Countless sword chi currents created with divine power of devastation flowed toward Yi Futian. When they passed through the void, everything turned into a desolate wasteland. When the currents gusted toward him, everything seemed to turn still. Then he raised his head to look at the sky. Immediately, the divine power of Yin froze the entire dimension. Following that, the divine power of Yang was unleashed. Both the powers of Yin and Yang merged and cancelled out the divine power of devastation. Swoosh! A gigantic black divine sword descended from the firmament and darkened the entire sky, turning the atmosphere dark and bleak. Everything in this dimension would be erased. The will of desolation descended below the 99 heavens, causing the crowds to flee from it. None of them dared to get near it for fear that it would be the end of them. Boom! The divine sword of devastation pierced through the divine power of Yin and Yang and went toward Yi Futian's figure. Lifting his head, he glanced at it and stretched his head to grab it. To everyone's surprise, the divine sword of devastation did not move his palm at all. The onlookers could not help but draw a cold breath at the sight of it as they stared at Yi Futian's hand. Was the attack of emperors-to-be that feeble to him? Those individuals were ancient emperors. Now that they had started their path of the emperors, they must have been very powerful. After all, they already had experience in cultivation a long time ago. Yi Futian stood on the spot gallantly like a god. A terrifying booming noise could be heard when he gripped his hand. At once, the divine sword of devastation in his hand was broken in pieces and slowly disappeared into thin air. The emperor-to-be who saw it felt resigned. Immediately, he made the sky even darker with a thought as he unleashed more divine power of devastation. Right then, an even more petrifying divine sword of devastation descended from the sky, aiming at Yi Futian. Initially, the other 2 emperors-to-be were spectating on the sidelines. But after witnessing Yi Futian's strength, they knew for a fact that he would wipe the floor with them. One of them formed numerous massive golden ancient bells in the sky with a thought. Ripples of sound waves came from the ancient bells and filled the atmosphere with their sound. Countless cultivators' blood froze upon hearing that. Even the stronger ones could hardly bear with the noise. The sonic blast brimmed with divine power of sound was aimed at Yi Futian's body. It could quickly destroy the spiritual soul of a cultivator, a domineering power one never wanted to come across. The combination of the physical and spiritual soul attacks doubled the offensive force. When facing an attack of this level, most cultivators would be easily overwhelmed. The attacks of two different natures were fatal upon impact. Furthermore, the third emperor-to-be did not make his move yet. In a flash, he turned himself into a colossal ancient god and threw his fists out. It was full of intimidating spirit and could break the fabric of space itself. It was an imposing sight to behold. The attacks of the three emperors-to-be covered the sky. And the location where Yi Futian stood was flooded with the divine power of destruction. Following the breaking out of God's might, most cultivators in 99 heavens could not bear it anymore and were decimated on the spot. Some of their spiritual souls were destroyed, while others had their physical bodies smashed to smithereens. Within the space of the brutal divine power, Yi Futian's silhouette gradually became larger and eventually turning into a god. Raising his head, he looked at the sky, and the divine lights of sun and moon were shot out of his eyes. At the same time, he threw his hand toward the sky. When the palm of God was hurled toward the void, the entire sky exploded. The divine sword of destruction, the intimidating golden divine fists, and the divine bell, brimming with the divine power of sound, were all shattered. It did not matter how oppressive the opponent's attacks were. In the end, he would still disintegrate them all with his palm. The spine-chilling giant palm kept moving up until it reached the three of them. Colors drained from their faces, and they leaped higher into the sky. However, Yi Futian fired the divine power of Yin from his eyes to slow them down. They moved in slow motion as if the surrounding space was frozen. A mere blink was long enough for the attack to reach them. At once, the frightening giant palm of Tianshan hit the three emperors-to-be indiscriminately. 3 blasts shook the atmosphere. It sounded as if the fabric of space and time would be torn open at any time. Following that, the 3 of them were sent flying and puking up blood. Their bodies were fatally injured, and the sky was filled with their blood. I've already said it before, times have changed. This era does not belong to you anymore. Yi Futian declared. His voice resounded through the atmosphere of the 99 heavens. Peering at the sky, he went on, "The divine battle axe belongs to Devil World. Period. If there's anyone who wishes to challenge me, I will not go easy on you next time." He had already pulled his punches as he was still wary of the 6 great emperors. Therefore, he would not go too overboard. All in all, the most important for him was to complete his path of the emperors and reach the great emperor plane. Only through that could he stand a chance in a fight with the 6 great emperors. At that moment, the 99 heavens turned into dead silence after everyone caught sight of the happening. A few years had passed since the last time Yi Futian displayed his strength, and he became even more powerful. To think that he could injure 3 great emperors-to-be with a single attack. How could the ancient cultivators hope to stand against him? His attack was domineering and indestructible. The cultivators beneath the 99 heavens were taken aback by the might of Yi Futian. If he could fatally injure 3 emperors-to-be with one attack, he could be considered unbeatable after ruling out the 6 great emperors. Was there anyone who could stand in his way in the 99 heavens? With his words alone, the owner of the divine battle axe was declared. The remaining emperors-to-be were affected by it the most. After all, they had been waiting for the longest time for a chance to make their comeback. Yet, a cultivator with monstrous strength emerged out of nowhere before they could even display their power. This man suppressed all the ancient emperors and told them that times had changed and that their era was long over. Was the era really changed? In retrospect, times had never changed. However, an unbelievably powerful cultivator would appear in every era. During ancient times, a group of individuals defied the world and opposed the heavens with their matchless strength. Now that a path of the emperors was discovered in this era, distinguished individuals would appear sooner or later. They were just unlucky to meet with one of those mighty figures. Apart from the great emperors, was there anyone who could defeat Yi Futian? Apart from the great emperors, was there anyone who could defeat Yi Futian? Similar thoughts ran through the minds of many onlookers. Yi Futian could injure 3 emperors to be with only one attack. So he had the right to be called undefeatable, excluding an attack by the great emperors. No one could imagine him being defeated if the opponent was not one of the great emperors. If the ancient emperors who became emperors to be could not take Yi Futian down, what about the once matchless cultivators with unbelievable strength? Could those individuals get the better of him? Perhaps they might need to become an emperor to be through path-slaying cultivation or gain enlightenment on some extraordinary divine power of the law first. Yi Futian's divine power was conspicuously more powerful than the 3 he easily defeated. His strength was in a different league. Devil World had maintained a good rapport with Yi Futian. Devil Imperial Palace has snagged a good bargain this time. Countless people thought to themselves, Devil World might be a powerful force, but the divine battle axe of creation was not a common item. It might be the divine power of the law during creation days. If one could grasp its power, their strength would be greatly increased. With that in mind, a few people of different realms stepped forward to stop the Devil World from getting their wish granted. If it weren't for Yi Futian's interference, it would not be easy for Devil World to get this divine item. They would need to scramble for it while shedding their blood. Now that Yi Futian had displayed his near-omnipotent strength and defeated 3 emperors to be without breaking a sweat, who would still dare to fight for it? Suddenly, everyone stopped fighting for the right to meditate on the divine battle axe of creation. They could only feel its power from afar. But if Devil Imperial Palace set up a barrier around the divine item, they would be kept out altogether. Many cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace shot Yi Futian a glance. After knowing the latter's relationship with Yu Sheng, many of them were not particularly fond of him. Many of them had a bad impression of him since they thought he was under the care of Devil Imperial Palace. Yet, everything had changed at this point. Yi Futian had won them the ownership of the divine item with his overwhelming strength. The people of Devil World admired powerful figures. As expected of Yu Sheng's best friend, Yi Futian, many acknowledged him. What would happen if the 2 of them formed an alliance in the future? It was something they didn't dare to imagine. Their alliance might be grander than the one between Donghuang the Great and Emperor Yi Qing. Yi Futian walked toward the divine battle axe of creation and came to a halt beside Yu Sheng. Then he began sensing the sharp aura overflowing from within. It was the divine power of creation manifested at the birth of the heavenly path. Yu Sheng, this divine battle axe really suits you, Yi Futian uttered. Technically, this divine battle axe was not a divine arm. It was formed through the power of the law of the heavenly path, brimmed with the will of creation, and took the form of a divine battle axe. This weapon was somewhat similar to the divine ruler that sealed the demonic lord earlier. It was the embodiment of the law of the heavenly path, one capable of sealing even the demonic lord from ancient times. I don't think it's that easy, Yu Sheng answered while staring at the divine battle axe of creation. Still, this weapon was suitable for him, though there was no saying if he could split open the devil abyss after completing the supreme demonic way. He had been chosen as the successor to the Devil Emperor, so the secrets of Devil Abyss had been revealed to him. The artifact from ancient times was more complicated than he had imagined. The Devil Abyss was created during the birth of the heavenly path. Give it a try, Yi Futian encouraged with a smile. Yu Sheng nodded. With their shoulders next to each other, they meditated on the divine power of the law within the divine battle axe. Yi Futian wondered what sort of divine power could be born with the power of the law of the heavenly path. Closing his eyes, he hovered his superconscious around the divine battle axe of creation and slowly entered the realm of the will of the divine battle axe. After a while, he came to a world of chaotic space. Inside that space, he noticed an enormous divine battle axe that split the space open, creating a frightening-looking crack and separating the sky from the earth. He was touched by the realm of the will. To his surprise, the divine power of creation was formed by merging different kinds of divine power of the law. Together, the domineering will, the peerless power, and extreme sharpness forged the divine power of creation. Perhaps hardly anyone could replicate this divine power, save for anybody like him. Soon, the divine light started to flow around Yi Futian's body. Inside his inner world, a silhouette was standing in the boundless space while peering at the countless worlds of this universe. Simultaneously, it also sensed the flow of different types of divine power of the law. Several illusions manifested around his body, looking like incorporeal figures. They were all his phantoms. All of them were holding a divine battle axe and separating the sky from the earth. But they were all slightly inferior. Some of the divine powers were easier to replicate, while the others were harder. For instance, creating the divine power of the 5 elements was like child's play for him since he was born at the creation of this universe. He had cultivated many powers in the past and had turned them into parts of the law of his micro-heavenly path to run this universe. However, specific non-existent divine power of the law, like the divine power of creation, could not be replicated easily. Usually, these extremely rare and powerful divine powers had manifested through coincidence. Yi Futian could not get it right even after meditating on it for a long time. In the end, he gave up. The divine power of creation was born at the birth of the heavenly path. So, there must be some specific requirements to replicate it. Nevertheless, he could recreate other divine powers inside his inner world. With a thought, his surroundings were suddenly filled with endless phantoms created by him. Those phantoms held a sharp sword in their hands and began cultivating on the way of the sword. At once, countless sword silhouettes were flying around as sword chi dominated the entire space. Yi Futian's consciousness turned into innumerable way of the sword. Each one was unique to the other. Divine power and divine technique were different sides of the same coin. Cultivators usually gain enlightenment on a divine power and then create a divine technique. In essence, a divine technique was a superpower. If one were to reverse the meditation process, would it work? Countless phantoms were practicing swords ceaselessly. None of them were practicing the same technique. In other words, Yi Futian could train himself in different sword skills multiple times all at once. After training for a long time, those phantoms headed toward the small worlds while holding a divine sword in their hands. Clang! One of the phantoms thrust the sword forward and caused the world to tremble, creating many cracks in the process. Yet it did not bunch this world at all. After all, this world was created with the divine power of the world. In another world, Yi Futian's phantom thrust the sword forward, creating a hole in that world and penetrating it. The huge opening had many cracks around it. But the result was not too different from the first one. The attacks by different divine powers would show up at different locations. It went without saying that Yi Futian wanted to find out a divine power that could destroy the world created with the divine power of the world. Once it was demolished, it would mean that the created divine power was of a higher level than the divine power of the world. His experiment went on for a long time. During this period, Yi Futian's phantoms thrust the swords countless times. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.